Let's start at the very beginning. A very good place to start. No, seriously, it starts back in the Ice Age with these two cavemen, right? And they go into this cave, and one of them gets beaten up by something big and mean and scary. Then the other one, it's like he finds the other thing and he beats the hell out of it with his little caveman club. And then the blood that comes out of this thing crawls up his legs. And he's like, ah, ah. He's really freaked out. Even for a caveman, he has no words. The next scene, we skip to the present, and a little boy falls through a hole in the ground in Texas in the present day, and he is in the same cave. And he finds this human skull, and he thinks it's really cool, and then all of a sudden, the same thing happens. These little things start to like crawl up his legs underneath his skin, and his eyes all turn black, and his friends are all freaked out, okay? So the police get called in, and 3 firemen go down there to get him. Nobody can figure out what happened to them. Everything is going wrong. This guy comes around a truck and is like on his cell phone. He's like, you know that impossible scenario we never planned for? Well, we have to plan for it now. The next scene finds Mulder and Scully in Dallas. They are still partners, but the X-Files have been shut down. So they're going to do like a routine, well not so routine, terrorist threat. A bomb threat has been called into one of the federal buildings. But Mulder, for some reason, has decided that instead of the building they said they were going to bomb, they're going to bomb the building across the street. Scully's like, this is ridiculous. But, as he is wont to do, Mulder finds the bomb. And there's not much time. The building is full of people, full of kids, okay? So they call in the SAC, the special agent in charge, and they're evacuating the building. And they think they get everybody out, okay? The SAC says he can defuse the bomb. Mulder says, I can't leave you alone with it. And he says, did you hear what I said? Go. And Scully's like, come on, Mulder, let's go. They get out of the building just in time to see it blow to pieces. So they're like, oh shit, SAC is dead. They get called back to Washington to go in front of the Office of Professional Responsibility, or OPR. OPR says that 3 firemen and a young boy died in the building, along with the SAC. Mulder and Scully are freaking out. This is the first they've heard of 3 firemen and a young boy being killed in the explosion. Afterwards, Mulder feels pretty guilty, and he goes out to get piss drunk. Seems like a good idea, right? But this guy approaches him and says that he worked with his father at the State Department and he has information for him that the 3 firemen and the young boy were already dead and that the bombing was to cover it up. So, Mulder decides that they have to get access to the bodies of these people, and Scully can determine if they have indeed died from the blast or if it was something else. Mulder bullies the guy at the morgue into letting them in, even though it's like super tight security. So they sneak in, and Scully opens up, you know, one of the dressed bodies already that have supposedly been autopsied. There's sacks of Jell-O in there. Like, they are all see-through and like jelly and slimy and disgusting. And so Scully's like, not only did they not die from a bomb, but I don't know what these people died of, and I seriously doubt anyone could tell you what they died of. So, Mulder decides that they have to go back to Dallas. But the next day, they are supposed to meet in front of OPR to discuss what to do with them, because they're holding them responsible for the bombing. Things could get pretty serious, and Scully's like, I don't want to go out to Texas, and he's like, but it could easily be a mitigating factor in you not getting fired or reassigned. And she's like, good point. She goes out to Dallas with him. They visit the field office, and they look at some of the things that were recovered from the blast. Scully looks at some bone fragments under a microscope, and she's like, holy crap, these are some of the same things that I saw in the bodies that I autopsied. They decide to go to this place where they think the 3 firemen and the young boy have actually died. They find a really nice playground with nice green grass, but they lift it up And sure enough, somebody has just covered it up with those little green grass squares. Kind of dumb. They talked to some kids who were friends with the boy that died, and they said that they were there with tanker trucks and that they left about an hour ago. So Mulder and Scully are driving through Texas. They've got to be back in Washington in about 18 hours for this hearing. Just driving in an unknown direction, looking for these tanker trucks that may or may not contain something. The virus, Mulder thinks. Scully is not so sure. She's actually not even sure why she came. They come to this railroad track, and Scully is basically freaking out on Mulder. She's like, I can't believe I'm here. I have to be at my hearing in 12 hours. They are going to make the decision of my life, and I'm not gonna be there because I'm out here with you looking for a virus in tanker trucks. Just then, they're at a railroad crossing, the little arms come down, and a train goes by. And guess what? It's got great big tanker trucks on it. So, they drive really fast up a hill, and they get out of their car, and they're like, what? There are these two giant domes in the middle of this cornfield. And they're like, well, this is curious, let's go and investigate. So they go inside one of these domes, right? And Scully's like, do you hear a humming? There's like a humming. And Mulder's like, oh. And she's like, what? And he's like, run like hell. Just then, all these little compartments in the ceiling and the floor open up, and there's this swarm of bees. They're coming after them like gangbusters. It is scary. They're being swarmed by bees. And Scully's like got her coat over her head, and she can't see anything. And Mulder has to come back and get her. Finally, they run out of the bee dome, and there's all this air, and it gets the bees off of them. They run out into the cornfield. They think it's all over, right? And then they start getting chased by these black helicopters coming through the sky. At this point, they start running like hell through the cornfield, and they somehow get separated, at which point Mulder does a fair impression of Marlon Brando at the end of Streetcar Named Desire. Scully! 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 This is why, when you play the X-Files drinking game, and you watch Fight the Future, you should never pick Scully as your buzzword. I did that once, and I can't say that I remember anything after this scene. They get away from the black helicopters. Scully comes in really late to her meeting at OPR with nothing but this little vial of fossilized bone fragments to prove all the stuff that they just discovered. Mulder goes back to the pub and is trying to meet with Kurzweil, and he has been spirited away by some men in black and probably killed. Mulder goes back to his apartment dejected. Scully comes in from her meeting with OPR, and it has not gone well. She tells him that they are going to be split up. And she says that she has tendered her letter of resignation, that she's leaving the FBI. She does not want to go to Salt Lake City where they transferred her. She's leaving. And Mulder says, you're quitting? And she says, yeah, I'm quitting. I'm quitting. And he says he needs her on this. She says, you know, why did they assign me to you? He says, you have saved me. You have made me a whole person. Your science has lent credibility to my work. I owe you everything. You owe me nothing. He chases her down the hall. She's walking out. And then they look at each other very tenderly, and they start to lean in, and you're like, this is it. After 5 years, they're finally gonna kiss and they're gonna get together. And they lean in towards each other like this.
I made this. No, really, I did.